Morning from BuQeye Barbecue. Another brisk morning here. Today we're going to do a poor man's brisket. And I've done poor man's burn ends before, sort of the same way. Today I'm going to go through a kind of a different process we're going to try, and we're going to end up slicing this and serving this just like a brisket. So thanks for joining us, and let's get this show on the road. So I want to show you how we're going to set up our charcoal basket. So this is the Hunsaker Vortex charcoal basket that I'm using. I'm going to use that drum smoker, the Hunsaker Vortex, to cook this poor man's brisket. I actually ran into a video that Harry Sue put out and how he sets up his Weber Smoky Mountains, and that's for all intents and purposes Weber's version of a drum smoker. So I'm actually going to try that method. I usually put wood chunks on the top of the charcoal so they can smolder and provide some smoke for the meat, but I'm going to do like Harry suggested. He's won enough first places around the country that I trust what he says. So we're going to put our wood chunks, and I'm only using 4. He actually uses a lot more, but he's typically cooking a brisket, so this is going to be a smaller cut of meat. But we're going to put them on the bottom and cover them with the charcoal. Those are actually hickory chunks, which is what I'm using today. I take that back. They are oak chunks. I misspoke. And we're going to just dump our charcoal into the basket on top of the wood. And I just want to make sure I have plenty for the cook, and I think that will probably be enough, but I want to make sure. One thing about most drum smokers is it's not easy to add fuel for a long cook, so I always want to make sure I have enough. And then the next thing we're going to do is kind of clear out a hole in the center, just sort of there we go. And that will be for our starting tumbleweeds to go in the center to start the fire. So let's go get our meat prepped. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is mix up our rub, which we're going to go Texas style today. So we're going to do nothing but salt and pepper. So I have some Morton coarse kosher salt and some 16 mesh black pepper. So I'm just going to mix these into an empty shaker bottle. Doesn't matter how much, but I do equal parts of each, so I'm just going to use a 1/4 cup measuring cup and do these in layers, and maybe do 2 scoops of each. See if I can do this without spilling it all. There we go. Pepper round 1. And it's important to get your salt and your pepper kind of the same size, so they sprinkle evenly out of your jar. So you don't want really fine black pepper and really coarse salt, or the opposite either. So that's why I got this 16 mesh black pepper. It's pretty coarse and it matches the salt. Alright, so this is 2 1/4 cup sizes of each in the shaker bottle. Spilled some of that salt, but that's alright, not much in the grand scheme. So we're just going to put this lid back on our empty shaker, formerly empty shaker, and mix it around really good. There we go. And I will pause the video now. I think I'm going to go ahead and do another few layers of the salt and pepper in this shaker just to get it done, since I have everything out. But you get the idea. So we'll come back and get our meat all seasoned up here shortly. Okay, so this chuck roast is from Porter Road. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a fan of Porter Road. It is just under 3 pounds, so I'm guessing this is going to be a 5 to 7 hour cook, maybe less. I am going to go at a little higher temperature, but a good long rest period afterwards as well. So we're going to get this cut open. It is thawed. It was frozen because I've had it for a little while, but I pulled it out a couple of days ago and just let it thaw in the fridge. So it's really a pretty piece of meat. I'm going to just use a paper towel and dry it off a little bit. It is tied, so they've got butcher's twine around it. I think I'm going to leave that in place. There is a natural break in a chuck roast down the center, so I want to keep it together. So a lot of times chuck roasts you buy at the store don't have that, and I've been fine doing those, but I'm going to go ahead and leave this one tied together. So we're just going to get this all seasoned up. I tell you what, I'm going to clean my hands up and get a glove, and we'll come back and get it going. Okay, so we're going to get this seasoned up. I am not going to use any sort of binder. I usually don't. I just don't find them to be necessary. I have before, and you do you. If you want to use a binder, mustard or Worcestershire sauce or hot sauce, whatever you want to do. But I'm just going to start getting this going. I've got my salt and pepper mixture. And we're going to be pretty liberal with this because it is big and thick, and on a piece of meat like this you want to be sure and get the sides as well. So I'm just going to start flipping this around. Actually, I will pat that in first and then just do every single side. Especially want to get your sides when you have a cut so thick like this. It's not super wide or anything, but it is thick. There we go. And we'll want to do the ends as well. I'm looking forward to just doing salt and pepper because I've done different rubs and there are a lot of good ones out there. I've even made my own recently, which is not something I do a lot of, but there's something about just salt and pepper that I think is really good on stuff like this, and you don't have to get fancy, especially with a nice cut of meat. I should have shown you up close all the marbling that was in this. It really was nice, and I have great luck with Porter Road. I think they put out great products, so that's going to be good. We're gonna call that done. All right, so next up is we're gonna get our cooker lit up and going while this just sits and marinates in the salt and pepper at room temperature for a little bit, and then we're going to get this on the pit. Okay, so we're going to get our fire basket lit. I've got 2 tumbleweeds there in the center with kind of a hole dug out in the middle, which you may or may not be able to tell that, but it's just a depression in the center where we're going to start our fire. So I'm just going to use a little torch here, get it going. And then I have just standard, I believe they're B&B briquettes today. I usually go with Kingsford or B&B or Royal Oak. All but Kingsford I have to order online. But then I've also got these 2 lengths of Prime 6 charcoal, which I've got a big bucket of. I'm going to do a whole video on it sometime, but I use them kind of to supplement burns like this. They'll burn really long, they're very dense, very little leftover ash, but they're great for starting a fire like this. So I'll just put those in the center on top of the tumbleweeds, and we're just going to let this go outside of the barrel for probably 10 minutes just to get a good burn going. but I don't want it to go too far because this is a lower and slower cook. So we'll bring you back. Okay, so we've been going about 6 or 8 minutes here. We're going to get our fire basket in the Hunsaker drum. First thing I'm going to do though, put the brake on the drum. I'm going to use the foot pedal here and move it to start because I still want to get some good airflow in there while this comes up to temperature. So we're just going to pick the charcoal basket up and drop it in the center. And I'm going to go ahead and put the Vortex plate on. Again, this is, if you've seen any of the Hunsaker videos before, you know that this is kind of their claim to fame. This fan-shaped, propeller-shaped smoke diffuser. It really gets the smoke convecting in a spiral up the cooker. Works really well. You can even see the smoke spinning as it comes up sometimes, which is really cool. And from there we're just going to leave the lid open on this for just a few more minutes to make sure that this gets a decent burn started, and then we will close the lid down and let it come up to temperature. So we'll bring you back. Okay, so I think our fire is going pretty good here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the lid closed down. And I am going to go ahead and leave the foot pedal in the start position and the smokestack at the top, which you can't see in the video, wide open until it starts coming up to temperature. I will probably start choking it down when it hits 225 to 250. Our cook today is going to be right around 275. I should be able to peg it pretty close with the Hunsaker drum. And so it's going to be a little hotter and faster than usual. And that's really where this drum loves to live, 275 to 300. So I don't even care if this ends up near 300, to be honest. But we'll definitely not let it go much higher than that, if we can help it anyway. So once this starts coming up to temperature, we'll bring you back and we will get our chuck roast on the smoker. One other thing real quick, I'm going to go ahead and put my grate in so it can start coming up to temperature. So I'm going to open the lid real fast, grab the grate, and if you're not familiar with the Hunsaker grates, they have pegs on them that go into a track that provides you different levels that you can cook at. So it's just that simple. So we've got that in there now. We'll get this closed down and now we'll come back with our meat in a few minutes. Okay, the smoker is coming up to temperature. It's resting at about 250 right now, and I did choke down the vent just because I didn't want it to spike, so we'll get it up to the 275 range. The other thing I'm going to set up is my ThermoWorks. It's a Signals. It's got 4 ports. I'm going to use one of them for an ambient port, which I'm inserting right now. If you saw my tour of the Hunsaker smoker, you might remember that I put a rubber grommet in the side of it so I could run temperature probes. The gauge on the Hunsaker is great, but I wanted a place where I could put probes for the meat, and I wanted a grate level temperature too, so that's why I added it. So right now that is climbing up towards 200. The stack gauge is running about 250, which they'll run maybe 10 or 20 degrees apart, I found. And next I'm going to put in my meat probe, and I'm just going to put that in the second port, and I'll leave it out until we bring our meat out, which is going to be any minute now. So, oops. So we'll bring you back here in just a minute. We'll get our meat on the smoker. Okay, the grate level temperature is pretty steady at 260. I might open the top vent up just a smidge to get that temperature in the 275 range, but I think we are good to put our meat on the smoker. Having the lid open on a drum smoker really causes the temperature to spike sometimes, so I'm going to be pretty quick here, but that'll probably get us up to our 275 range just by opening the lid, so I don't necessarily want to be that high right now. So we've got our chuck roast that's been marinating now in the dry marinating, I should say, dry brining with the salt and pepper for probably a couple hours now. So we're going to get it on the grate, and we are going to get our temperature probe fed through and into the meat. So here we go. Whoa. I need to clean my Hunsaker for sure. I'm going to put that right there, just a little off center. And now I'm going to take my meat temperature probe and feed it through my rubber grommet. There we go. And now I'm going to kind of judge the center where I want to probe the meat. I'm thinking about right in that thick part right there past the fat split, which again is a natural thing in these chuck roasts. So there we go. I think that's going to be pretty good. So we'll get the lid closed so we don't spike too high. Meat temperature reading just over 33 degrees, something like that. So that's good. So we're just going to let this go. Okay, we've been on exactly 2 hours. Cooker's running around 272 ambient temperature, and the chuck roast is around 143 to 145. I've seen it flash back and forth between those numbers, 144 now. Chuck roast, sort of like brisket, but even more so, will rise super quickly in temperature. So in 2 hours we've gone from 33 degrees to 143 degrees. I expect that the stall will happen between 150 and 165, and I don't want to wrap this until it goes through the stall. So I want to let it sit unwrapped through the entire stall is what I mean. So I'm going to open the lid really quickly. I am mostly looking to see if we need to spritz. I have just a cheap spray bottle that is about 1 part apple cider vinegar and 2 parts apple cider. I won't spritz if it looks moist enough, or I may spritz just a little bit, so we'll see. But I'm telling you this in advance because I'm going to get this lid open and closed pretty quickly here. So with that, let's take a look and see if we need to spritz, and then we'll get her shut down. Okay, definitely see some moisture on top in different lower areas, but I am going to spritz just a little bit, not much. There we go. Tallow looks great. We're going to get her shut. So I'm going to use that tallow during the wrapping process, and I'm going to wrap in peach butcher paper, unwaxed, just standard butcher paper. That's what I like to wrap beef in, briskets, or chuck roasts like this. As far as the tallow goes, I will use that in the wrapping process just to baste the paper and pour over the outside of the brisket as I wrap it. That's something I first saw from Jeremy Yoder on Mad Scientist Barbecue. Check his channel out if you haven't already. I've learned a lot from his channel. And one of the things is he thinks that this could be one of the big secrets of Aaron Franklin's briskets. Whether or not that's true, I have no idea, but I've been doing it now, I don't know, for a few months at least, and I really think it adds something to the beef, briskets, and chuck roasts. So with that, we will check back probably in another hour. My cooker is pretty stable, so that quick lid opening was not a big deal. We'll see you soon. Okay, we're at 3 hours now, almost exactly. Cooker is running at 260 degrees, which is a little lower than I had planned, but it's been fine. I haven't wanted to mess with it. I might try to get it back to 275 after we take a look here. And our chuck roast is at 160 degrees internal. I haven't really seen much of a stall yet, so I'm not sure we've reached that. Every piece of meat is different, so you never quite know when that's going to happen, how long it's going to last. So we're going to take a very quick look. I'm going to have my sprayer ready in case we need it. We're going to take a look at the bark and see where we are. Wow, that's beautiful. I'm actually not going to spray it. It looks moist enough. I'm going to get this lid closed so we watch our temperature. We're going to take this to between 190 and 195 probably. I'm going to see how it probes, even if I'm doing it through the butcher paper, which is going to be our real test. And I want it to have some give to it, but I want to be able to slice this. I don't really want it to pull apart or shred. So we might not quite take it up super high, you know, the 203s to 208s, but we'll start testing it and probing it around 190 to 195 and see where we are. My suspicion is we'll end up pulling it off around 200, but again, temperature is less important to me than feel, so we'll bring you back. Okay, I think we are pretty well through a small stall, which was really in the 160 to 170 range. Our meat temperature right now is 172. Our cooker temperature is 293. So we're going to take a look. I have a feeling I'm going to wrap now, but we'll see. Okay, bark is not coming off on my finger. That's a good sign. We have a lot of moisture. That's great to see. I am going to go ahead and wrap. So I'm going to pull the temperature probe out. I'm going to take my smoked beef tallow, and then I'm going to slip this spatula under here and get the chuck roast on the tray. So I'm going to get this lid closed so we're careful with the temperature spikes, and we will bring you inside for the wrap. Okay, so we're going to get this wrapped up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my smoked tallow and just pour a little bit on the base there where the chuck roast is going to sit. I'm going to take the chuck roast. By the way, I love the color on this. I hope you can see that in the picture. Looks great. And then I'm going to take a little more of the tallow and just add it to the top. Just let it run down the sides a little bit. Not going to overdo it, but that looks good. And then to wrap, we're just going to cover and then fold. Add a little crease there, fold the other side. Add a crease there. And then just let it go. Alright, so the top side, as it were, is up now. I'm just going to fold this under. Give me a good way to carry it. And we're going to take this back outside and get it on the smoker. I'm not going to worry about the camera because I want to get it back on there pretty quickly. And we'll get the temperature probe back in it and we will continue to monitor. So I will bring you back in a little while. Okay, we're showing about 193 now on the ThermoWorks signals. I always like to double check that with my ThermoPen and also check for tenderness. So here we go. Tenderness is pretty good, and I'm showing 195 there, so pretty close. 198 there, and the tenderness is good. So I'm going to be pulling this off, and this is going to go straight into a cooler for probably a couple hours. Again, a regular brisket or even a chuck roast that you want to shred or make barbecued beef, you might want to go up a little higher, but I really want to slice this. We're going to have some carryover heat, so this is going to end up right around 200 probably, and should be good and sliceable. At least that's the plan. So we'll get this into a cooler and we will bring you back when we cut it. Okay, so it has been, it was cook time of about 5 hours and 15 minutes and a rest time of exactly 2 hours on this. So we're gonna pull it out. It has been in a cooler. I like the way it feels. It's definitely feels tender. So I'm just, smells great. So I've just got this cookie sheet here to catch some drippings. So I hope you can see that really well. Bark looks really good. So I'm gonna put this on my cutting board. There we go. I think I will actually take a quick break and do my thumbnail for this because I forget all of the time. So we'll be right back. Okay, so let's get this sliced. So I'm just going to start on one of the ends here. Gosh, that fat is rendered beautifully. I'm using a new slicing knife, which I've been looking for an excuse. It's probably overkill for this. Color is beautiful. Let's take a look at one of those slices. Lots of juice in there. Really pretty. I sort of can't take it. I've got to try a piece. Family's ready to eat, so I'm gonna not try on camera. We will try right now. That's really good. There's something about just salt and pepper on beef. Forgot my butcher's twine. Salt and pepper on beef is all you need. There are good rubs for sure, but at the end of the day, it's all about the salt and pepper. This is the perfect size for us because we end up pitching a lot of brisket. Takes less time to cook. So definitely give a chuck roast a try in place of brisket. Cook it just like you would the brisket. It's really, really worthwhile. So thank you as usual for joining us here at BuQeye Barbecue. Do me a favor if you haven't already done so and like this video and subscribe to the channel. It'd be appreciated, and we will see you next time.